Good morning, children. Welcome to the class. Children, in today's session, let us discuss Lesson 10, The Lost Pumpkin, Part 1. The theme of the lesson is Our Neighbor and Community. Here, help, help, he was robbed us. The thief. A loud voice woke up Soumya. Rubbing her eyes, she jumped out of bed and ran to the window. In the kitchen garden below, she could see her grandfather angrily waving his walking stick. Soumya ran down the stairs with her brother Rohit. Now here, help, help. Here, grandfather is shouting out loudly that help, help, someone has robbed us. The thief has robbed us. By listening to the words, loud voice, what happened, Soumya? She woke up immediately and rubbed her eyes and jumped out of the bed. And she ran to the window and observed that from where the voice is coming, what had happened. Then, in the kitchen garden below, she saw her grandfather is waving his walking stick and shouting angrily. So, Soumya ran down the stairs with her brother Rohit. Then what happened? See, Dadaji stood near a bed of vegetables. His face was red with anger. What happened, Dadaji? Asked Soumya. Unable to speak, Dadaji pointed his stick to a spot. Soumya looked, then looked again and screamed, "Oh no, it's gone." Rohit, still confused, asked, "What's gone?" Now what happened has Soumya heard the voice of grandfather shouting loudly and angrily. She ran down the stairs along with her brother Rohit. When she came down, Dadaji stood near the bed of vegetables. So he stood near the vegetables. Now his face has become red with anger. Then Soumya asked Dadaji, "What happened, Dadaji?" Now Dadaji was unable to speak. So what he is doing? He is pointing at a spot with his walking stick. Then Soumya looked at that spot. She looked once again and then she screamed. She was very surprised and she said that, "Oh no, it's gone." So by hearing the words of Soumya, Rohit asked. Still he was very confused. He was asking that what's gone? Next. "My pumpkin, my precious pumpkin," cried Dadaji. By this time, a crowd had collected at the scene. The gardener was in tears. His son, Paltu, looked sad. The milkman was curious to know what had happened, and the washerwoman nodded wisely. "I saw him jump over the wall," she said. Now here has grandfather shouting loudly. Soumya and Rohit ran there and Soumya noticed that it was gone. And Rohit asked, he was in confusion and asking that what's gone. Then Dadaji cried out loudly and said that my pumpkin, my precious pumpkin. So someone has stolen my precious pumpkin. By hearing the voice of Dadaji, all the people who were there near gathered at that spot. Like the gardener was there and he was in tears that he lost his pumpkin, and his son Paltu is also looking so sad because they lost pumpkin, and also the milkman came there and he was very curious to know what had happened, why all are gathered there. Then even the washerwoman also nodded wisely and she said that I saw a person jumping over that wall. Then, "Nonsense," said Paltu. "He came from the other side. I saw him." Then Paltu, the son of the gardener, is also shouting that. He is also telling that nonsense. "I saw that person from the other side." Then, "Why didn't you catch him then?" asked Rohit. Just then Soumya squealed, "A footprint. Look." Then has Paltu said that I have saw that side jumping over the wall. Then Rohit asked to Paltu that when you have saw, then why don't you catch him? Then Soumya squealed and she said that footprint. Then Soumya, she squealed, that is, she cried out loudly and said that, look there, the footprint. Sure enough, there was a large footprint near the pumpkin plant. Said Rohit thoughtfully. Now, who has such big feet? Of course, Mr. Kapoor's gardener. I knew Kapoor was behind this, always after my pumpkins. Come on, let's get him, roared Dadaji. Now, Soumya saw the footprints near the wall. Then she said that, see the footprints. All they went and they observed the footprints, and the footprints were very large, which is near the pumpkin plant. By seeing the large footprint, Rohit said, he was thinking something, and in a thoughtful way, he said, now I know who has such big feet. Of course, it is the footprint of Mr. Kapoor's gardener. By listening to the words of Rohit, Dadaji roared. He said loudly that, yes, I know the thief was Mr. Kapoor only. Always Kapoor is back of my pumpkins only. Now let us find out. Let us get him here, he shouted loudly. Then it took the children some time to calm their excited grandfather. They felt sorry for him because they knew how he felt about his pumpkins, especially the one that was stolen. You see, for the last 15 years, Dadaji had been winning the local vegetable contest and walking away with the first prize. His pumpkin was always the best. No other vegetable could match it. Now here, as Dadaji was very angry and he was roaring, for the children it took some time to calm down him. Then they also felt very bad because they know the importance of the Dadaji's pumpkin. The pumpkin was special, especially the stolen pumpkin had a lot of speciality. And from the last 15 years onwards, Dadaji is winning the local vegetable contest. Always he is getting the first prize. And among all the pumpkins, the stolen pumpkin was the best. No other vegetable could match the stolen pumpkin. That's why it's very precious. This year's pumpkin was huge, but now it was gone. Of course, Mr. Kapoor was the thief. He had challenged Dadaji, saying he would grow a better pumpkin and win the prize. Many a time he had come looking around with the excuse of tasting Granny's pumpkin halwa. Better than Matru's halwais, he always said. So here, every year from 15 years onwards, every year Dadaji is getting first prize in the local vegetable contest. So here, this year also Dadaji got a huge pumpkin which is going to win. But they know that Mr. Kapoor has stolen their pumpkin because Mr. Kapoor challenged Dadaji, saying that this year he is going to grow a better pumpkin and win the prize. And always he used to come to Dadaji's house with an excuse of tasting Granny's pumpkin halwa. Always when he had the pumpkin halwa, he would say that this halwa is better than Matru's halwa is. Always he said that and came here to observe the pumpkin. So they were thinking that he might stolen the pumpkin because he want to win the prize. Now, Soumya tried to reason with her grandfather. Dadaji, we cannot just march into Mr. Kapoor's house and call him a thief. Maybe he hasn't taken the pumpkin. I know he has, said Dadaji. I have an idea, said Rohit. Let's pretend to visit him. Dadaji will, while you speak to him, Soumya and I will look around. Now what happened? Soumya said that directly we can't go to Mr. Kapoor's house and we can't say him that you have stolen our pumpkin. So we need to plan for something to find out our pumpkin. He might have not stolen it. But Dadaji said that no, I know he only stolen my pumpkin. Then Rohit said that I have an idea. He clearly said that he clearly explained the plan to Dadaji and Soumya. Like, we'll pretend to visit his house and Dadaji, you talk to him. Meanwhile, we'll check in his garden whether our pumpkin is there or not. So we'll look around. We means here Rohit and Soumya. Then, wow, Rohit, this is your first great idea of the year, teased Soumya. So off they went to Mr. Kapoor's house. He and Dadaji soon began to argue about their vegetable gardens. The children quickly slipped away to look around Mr. Kapoor's garden. They looked everything, but there was no sign of the pumpkin. When Rohit explained about the idea, then Soumya teased him that yes, this was a good idea. For the first time, you got the great idea of the year. Then Dadaji, Rohit, as well as Soumya, three of them went to Mr. Kapoor's house. Soon, Dadaji and Mr. Kapoor has started discussion about the vegetable garden. Then the children, Rohit and Soumya, they slipped away from there and looked around in the Mr. Kapoor's garden, but they did not find it. But they couldn't find the pumpkin. Even there was no sign that their stolen pumpkin was there. Then, where could it be? Wondered Soumya. In the house? Look, whispered Rohit. That little shed, it must be in there. However, all that they found were bags of manure, some flower pots, and garden tools. Then, as they were looking around, they couldn't find anything in the garden. So Soumya wondered that where could be our pumpkin? Maybe it is in his house. So Rohit said, very slowly, whisperingly said that, look, that little shed, it must be there in the shed. So they went into the shed, but they found bags of manure and some flower pots and garden tools in the shed, but they couldn't find the pumpkin. Then, what are you doing here? A voice roared behind them. It was Mr. Kapoor's gardener. Nothing, nothing, said Soumya. Now, as they were searching for the pumpkin, they looked all around the garden. They couldn't find. Then they went into the shed. There they found bags of manure as well as the garden tools and flower pots, but they couldn't find pumpkin. Meanwhile, they heard a voice roaring at them that, what are you doing here? And the voice is Mr. Kapoor's gardener. Then both Rohit and Soumya said that nothing, nothing, said. Then, our pumpkin, said Rohit. Where is it? Your pumpkin? At first, the man looked puzzled. Then he understood what the children meant. He ran into the house shouting, Sir, Mr. Kapoor, these children, they say we have stolen. Now Rohit said, as the gardener is asking, what are you doing here? Soumya said, nothing, nothing. Then Rohit said, our pumpkin. Then the gardener said that, where is your pumpkin? Your pumpkin? Your pumpkin? At first, the gardener was puzzled. Then he understood what the children were trying to say. And he ran into the house shouting that, Sir, Mr. Kapoor, these children are saying that we have stolen their pumpkin. So that is about part 1, and part 2 will be continued in the next lesson. So now with this we have completed lesson 10, the lost pumpkin, part 1. Now coming to today's homework, children, read lesson 10, the lost pumpkin. Okay children, that's it for today. See you in the next session. Bye children.